they will need both vocational training and high academic training. Some of the donors have been very good at providing scholarships, so you will probably a lot of the politicians that you're meeting and high-level policymakers that you're meeting today, or that you have met in the past 2 days, have been trained abroad in some ways, have gone to Australia or Canada or the US at some point. And that's a great benefit to the country. The other good thing is that they come back. So a lot of the Mongolians who have been studying abroad do come back to the country, which is fantastic, I find. But it's a long way. It's a long way to go, and it's not clear that there is a very clear strategy within the aviation community here on how they're going to go about it. So we're trying.
Yeah. Okay. I think first of all, I'll give you a bit of an overview of what is happening in terms of infrastructure. What are the objectives in this regard? As you have probably already realized, this is a big country. This is a country of, 3 times France, probably almost half of Western Europe. And currently, the big picture in terms of infrastructure is we are already in the stage of announcing several bids for power plants, coal-fired power plants. The new railroad will go from mines down south to the existing railway, and then will go to the east of the country to connect to the Russian. I think they may have that. Yeah. Yeah. And then it will go up to Russia to the existing Trans-Siberian railway. Why we're doing this? Some people say that, and of course, the McKinsey says that the tariff structure for that railway, particularly the feasibility study, shows that it will be a bit more expensive. But relying on the only railway that goes to south to China, in terms of minerals, is something not very wise thing to do, because when you rely on one exit, obviously the transportation expenditure for minerals will be much higher. So we're trying to inject the competition, and we are in negotiations with the Russian government on concessional railway tariffs, and that railway line, hopefully they will draw the map, show the map. That railway line that goes from China to Russia across the existing railway is somewhere close to $3 billion. And the plan is that this railway will be started pretty much next year. We are, as a government, we have approved the whole vision, the picture. It was approved by the Parliament. Now we'll go. Yes. There is a current railway. Do you have one? Yes. The current railway. Do you have it? Yes. The current railway goes from here to here. Here. The big mines are down here. And the new railway will go connect to the existing railway and then go up to Russian Trans-Siberian railway, and hopefully we can reach to the ports, to Far Eastern ports in Russia, and currently and also can go to the ports nearby Tianjin, coal ports nearby Tianjin. So it will have two exits to the sea, three exits to the sea, because also under this McKinsey study, not only this link will work, but also there will be another link that will go not only to Russia, but also from here it will go to China, and it will go to the Chinese ports here, like Dalian, Datong, ports like that. And these ones should go to Vladivostok or Stochna and Agra. So this total investment requirement is about also $3 billion. So that's the railway. And the construction of the autoroad is underway. We have a big plan pretty much to connect. We call it the Millennium Road, that will connect the capital city to here. We go here, there will be link here, there will be road here, and this road also will be complete. So currently what we have finished is, we have finished this bit. This work is going on. This work is already going on. The money is allocated for these two bits from the United States Millennium Challenge account. We are halfway through here, almost finished here. It's going down already here and here. And then we somewhere halfway, well, 1/3 way here. There is also one road that will go like this, and we are 1/3 here. Finished. This road also will be done with, as I understand, with the ADB money, some Chinese money, Millennium Challenge, I think, money, and the work has already started on this one. So, but infrastructure on the road, as you can imagine, compared to railway and power, you cannot earn money on it. There's not too much traffic on it, but you need those roads anyway. So this is a huge public investment project. And currently, for instance, the budget of the road minister is 5 times bigger than mine. 5 times bigger than mine, because all these roads which are built with public money, with money from donors, etc., it's a huge investment given the size of the country. So this is the big infrastructure vision: roads, power, and railway. We are also building a new airport. The new airport will be next to the new airport with the Japanese OTA will be built next to the capital city. And the expansions will take place here, big airports, in the south of the globe. So this is a big infrastructure plan. What we're looking in terms of, let's say, where we're going to be by 2015, 2020, currently we are somewhere around $3,000 per capita. And it's still a very poor country. Still a very poor country. But I remember a time in 2000 when we were under $400. No, it was 500 something around 2000. Yeah, I remember.
350, 97.
Yeah, it was about 400, 500 around 2000. So 2010, we were around 3000. So our objective is that, well, it was our objective by 2015, we'll try to reach 15,000. I think it's a very optimistic prognosis. It's a very optimistic plan. So in general, our development, National Development and Reform Commission believes that by 2015 it will be somewhere within the range of 7,000.
Basically, we have this report consists of two parts. One is I want to motivate the report by showing you some macroeconomic indicators, how these indicators change over time, which will be a motivation for the report. And then after that, I want to discuss risk associated with the country's development. So we will see very interesting pictures. For instance, if you look at GDP growth, the graph above, it's very volatile, as you can see. So this is covers from 1997 to 2010. between 2003 and 2008, average growth of GDP was 8.7%. And then, as Eric said, we were hit very hard by commodity price decline. In 2009, we had a drop in GDP. And then it picked up very fast. In 2010, we have economic growth was around 6%. So the basic picture is the economy is very volatile. It's expanding a lot, and also it can decrease a lot. If you look at inflation, same picture. It's very volatile. Over the 15 years, average inflation, 12-month rolling inflation was 10%. And standard deviation was also 10%. So you have a very big fluctuation in inflation as well. If you look at 2009, we have inflation of over 30-something%. And we had a sharp drop towards the end of 2012. So it's very volatile also. If you look at banking sector, total assets of banking sector increased from 0.2 trillion in nominal terms to 5.1 trillion in 15 years. And now it's around equivalent to 62% of GDP. So financial sector is increasing a lot. In terms of banking sector, it's around 96% of the whole country's financial sector. So financial sector is dominated by the banking sector. Also, maybe most of you heard that Mongolia is performing really well in terms of equity indexing. The market cap of the Mongolian stock exchange increased by 2.4 trillion as 2010. Increased it. So now it's around. In 2010, the index rose 233%. So it's very volatile as well. So if you look at trade turnover, for the last 15 years, it increased from $1 billion to $6 billion. This country doesn't run that much of a trade deficit, usually. So around 3 billion exports, 3 billion imports. But during the crisis, we have experienced trade deficit of around $1 billion. So if you look at government expenditure, also we have a big expansion in government expenditure. Even in terms of share of GDP, it increases from 35 to 51% as of 2009. So we have a very big government, very volatile economy, which is expanding very fast. And why this happened for the last 15 years? It basically, as many of the previous guests told us, it's because of commodity price fluctuation. So now I want to look at a little bit deeper into the economy in terms of structure of it. So as of 2000, Mongolian economy, the structure looks like this in this pie chart. Mining now takes 18% of GDP. It used to be, 15 years ago, agriculture was the dominant sector, accounting for almost 26.5% of the economy. Now it's only 16%. So we are moving towards from agriculture-based economy to still mining-based economy. And because this mining sector is such a big part of the economy now, we are vulnerable to commodity price fluctuations. And this vulnerability will be even more so in the near future because of the two big mining projects on the way. First is Oyu Tolgoi, which is a very big copper deposit. So at the peak of the production, it's going to produce 800,000 tons of copper concentrate. And we compare it to the Earth mine, which is now operational since 1976. It's only 130. So you see the difference in the production, and it's going to have a big impact going forward. Beyond like 2020, Town Togo is going to be, the coal deposit is going to be a driving force for the economy. So there are various estimations, production estimations, but one says by 2020, Town Togo will export 40 million tons of brown coal and 10 million tons of coking coal. So these two projects will have a profound effect on the economy. We have experienced a shift towards mining industry. Now that mining industry is going to become even more big. And mining sector plays a crucial role in government revenue as well, accounting for almost 40% of the total revenue and 81% of the total export. So when you look at this volatile economy, I wanted to put it a little bit of framework there. So you have demand side and supply side. So interaction between these two create this volatility in various macroeconomic indicators. So on the demand side, we have I think two major driving forces working. So one is terms of trade shocks, so sudden increase in commodities and sudden decrease in commodity prices and sudden decrease in commodities. And we already experienced what kind of impact it's going to have on the economy from 2008-2009 crisis. So the source of shock is terms of trade shock. And so, for instance, a little bit of numbers. Trade deficit reached $1 billion US, and it put a big pressure on the exchange rate to depreciate. And Bank of Mongolia tried to intervene in the market, but to give up because international reserve is about $500 million US, which will not cover 17 or 14% of imports, weeks of imports. And the economy also tanked. So one indicator is non-performing loans, which almost 20% of total loans. It's in just very short period of time. And government revenue missed its target by a very big amount, 5.7% of GDP. So this is the source of the shock, and it's going to have a very big impact on the economy, as you can see. But more importantly, there's policy risk also involved in it. We have a highly cyclical fiscal and monetary policies working. If you look at fiscal policy, more or less explained by the huge revenue from the mining sector, but monetary policy was also very accommodative. If you look at this graph below, average money supply growth was 28% on a 12-month roll basis, whereas inflation was 10%. So we have a substantial bank allowed to expand the money base a lot, and because of that, cyclical policies, when you grow very fast. When you go down very fast. So these are two basic channels through which boom and bust cycle work for the country, and it's exposed the country's weakness during the 08 and 09 crisis. In the long run, though, we have also vulnerabilities in terms of structural change in the economy. Of course, we would have to consider resource growth. And because mining is going to be even more big part of the economy, you have to consider vast disease effect, which main channel is go through the real exchange rate appreciation, because the real prices of the goods in the domestic market are higher. Domestic producers lose competitiveness in the world market, and therefore domestic producers shift towards the non-tradable sector or mining sector. And second thing under resource course we have to think about is quality of institutions and governments. So country does very poorly in terms of quality of institutions and governments. So for instance, corruption, transparency, international ranked the country 107th place out of 179. And in terms of business environment, also it doesn't look very good. So for instance, world competitiveness index ranks the country 117.
96. Latest one, 96. So the distance.
Yeah, so this is a 2010 number, which was affected by the crisis. So this is basically issues that we wanted to discuss. Also, the country faces environmental risks, sudden climatic changes. So 2009, 2010, harshness of because of this winter, we lost almost 20% of total livestock, which puts pressure on food prices to increase. Also, we will have talked pollution in Ulaanbaatar, which is a health risk to people. And with related to the mining industry, you have a lot of issues with land and water degradation, deforestation, desertification, and things like that. So all these are risks that we have to consider. And lastly, we will look at political risks. So we divide it into domestic and foreign. So domestic, I think we covered a lot. There is this actually intersects greatly with the policy risks, because two parties tend to put out populist policies. You have these policy risks as well. Both those intersecting with policy risks. On the foreign side, we have two neighbors. We have to balance interests of these two big countries, and our foreign policy is to create a third neighbor country to have a greater collaboration with the countries other than China and Russia. So these are overview of the risk report that we are working on. And Nigel will comment more.
So for today, we are to get comments on our first draft, so very much looking forward to receive your comments. If not now, maybe later we will be happy if you send us comments. You accept your comments and you are going to think to publish the report in our website with your comments maybe.
Well, one issue that I want to raise here is that although we have seen the price volatility in the commodities and the resulting volatility in the economic performance of the country, just to give you a background, if we in the 90s and the beginning, the first 10 years of the 2000, the new millennium, were a major export item was copper in terms of in the mining. The composition inside the mining has changed. And maybe Zorik will elaborate on this and how he envisions this diversification inside this industry happening, you know. And the question is whether necessarily the commodity prices will move always in the same direction. So is there a perfect correlation in the movement of the major existing export items and potential export items going forward? And then Zorik spoke about some mitigating factors such as more value add type of processing industries locally, etc. And just to fix that 117 is there was a progress, and the newest Global Competitiveness Report ranks Mongolia 96. That happened from 118 to 96 in last 2 years. So there is a positive kind of a trend happening.
Okay, any immediate comments, questions? Well, we go to me first, and then I skip, and then
Just go around all of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, wait. Yeah, Mina, go first. You.
Okay. First of all, can I just say thank you to Yugan and Zoe on the opportunity to come and visit your country. It's a great privilege to be here and to be shown your country by you guys. And not only that, but to stand with you as we watch this evolution of the country evolve into an enormously powerful force in the international community. I have two questions. The first one is in relation to risk. One of the risks that I don't see up on the board is that you are moving from $500, $300 per person to $15,000 in 15 years. Actually, it's not a very long period of time for such a huge amount of growth. And I wonder how much time and effort you're spending and what your plan is to manage some of the social issues which will come as a result of such rapid economic prosperity. And the second question is, in respect of one of my favourite issues, which is water, mining is only possible when you have access to sufficient amounts of clean water. Building manufacturing is only possible when you have access to clean water. Building any kind of infrastructure and any kind of agricultural business is only possible when you have access to clean water. And I don't know what assessment there has been about access to the clean water and the aquifers that exist in the northern part of the country, what plans there are to move some of that water down to the south, and what impact you've made an assessment that will have on the growth of the country.
So in terms of per capita income, 15,000 is a very, very ambitious number. And as Minister Zoe said, I'm not sure it's a likelihood of reaching 15,000 is very, very low. One of the estimations we have done so far is country's GDP will double by 2017, around 2017, 2018, because of what we told them. It's a huge, huge project, and there is this possibility of doubling income by 2017-18. So we have already done some research on it. In terms of per capita, so you divide it by 2.8 million people.
Yeah, actually, my question was about the social impact of that. So a rapid growth I'm not arguing about numbers, I don't know enough about them, but what I'm asking about is how are you going to manage the impact that will have on
social stability, disparity.
Yeah, I think I would add to the presentation two more numbers that, to my knowledge and to my mind, probably also more risk factors as well. Currently, and I think there's big popular attention to this issue, but in terms of scientific research, there isn't much that has been done so far, nor by our local institutions, either by the research from the donor community or the institutions from somewhere else. I think currently we have a very puzzling situation where we have about 2.7 population, 2.7 million. The total workforce out of this is how much?
1.1. 1.1.
It's close to 1.1 something. Huh? 1.1. I think it's below 1, no? No, it's 1.1. Yeah, I think, well, we'll clarify the number. This is the active workforce. You discount the people who can work, who cannot work, etc., etc., and
1.14.
yes, 1.14. Yeah, exactly. This is the active workforce. So imagine this is probably half, very close to half, male and female. Male and female. But from this population, let's say of 600,000 young men, or men between the age of 15 to 60, I don't even know the exact number. I would say I'm tempted to say something close to 70, from 70 to 100,000 is abroad. Is abroad. Abroad. Looking somewhere else. Looking somewhere else.
So informal number is 200,000.
Informal number is even bigger. 200,000. So maximum it can reach 200,000. And usually the prototypical person of this number is a male between the age of 25 to 40, I would say. Male between the age of 25 and 34. I see this is one of the biggest risks the countries develop. These people who are long time overseas, who are at the reproductive age, and people who are the pyramid, the usual pyramid is actually gone. I think there's a big hole right somewhere here. And I think this is one, in terms of social population factor, I think this is one of the biggest. Second, exactly what you asked. The problem nowadays, and this is where I disagree with most of our politicians, and even with my Minister of Finance. We have a flat income tax, 10%. Our politicians tend to be very proud of this. I say this is a very dangerous thing. Imagine these big mines producing millionaires almost every month. And then the GDP per capita is $3 million, $3,000, 3,000 US. Whereas these assets, these are world-class assets all over the country. Values can be anywhere from anything to anything. And the problem is that I think the tax structure, the only thing to bring social justice, I strongly believe, is tax. And in this country, I think this is a very badly structured tax system. 10% flat income tax. Even the corporate income tax is 10-25. We have a two-tier structure, 10% and 25%. Corporate income tax. Businesses will be happy. This is probably one of the lowest in the region, pretty much. But of course there is some added taxes on mining. For instance, we have a flat royalty of 5%, royalty on minerals, plus there is a super profit royalty, on average sliding super profit royalty that is based on the price, world price of the asset, world price of the mineral. That averages usually around 8%. It goes, I think, from 5 to 10 maximum. On copper only, it can go up to 20%. Copper and gold. So I think, yes, there is a big danger unless we change this. I always say that we need to have bigger taxes, more taxes on income. I think if we go on, if we talk about income beyond $150,000, I think we need more taxes. Like the States, close to 30s, maybe. Plus, Plus, I think that this number needs to be increased. I mean, that's just to illustrate that point.
I just want to add here that currently the situation is quite a bit funny because we have 10% taxes, but then we are running huge budget surpluses and we don't know how to manage this money. So on the other hand, I would just argue that we need to get there. In Norway, for example, the oil companies will pay 78% tax. But then we saw what happened in Australia with the super tax imposition and then the government falling afterwards. I think we need to gradually get there. I think it already implies that with more income, the government will be able to do more income redistribution type of activities. I think we need to get there gradually because right now it's a formation stage and we need to maintain the stability or the image of the stability.
That's why this idea is not supported by the Ministry of Finance.
Where else do you have such a Ministry of Finance which says, let's keep the taxes low?
Okay, let's do this question from Nico, Daisuke, and Christopher, all three, and then we'll stop. Yeah.
So, I'd like to try out a line of reasoning here. I'm not a specialist in any of this, but sitting here, listening to presentations, I just wanted to test the thinking. I mean, there's a lot of really valuable numbers and graphs and so on here. What I see this meaning is that where in most countries a bunch of policies can be defined to stabilize, what this says to me is that this system that's almost set up to go haywire, that you have an underlying very volatile thing around commodity prices, and everything is designed to be sensitive to it. I mean, not because people are unintelligent, but because it's so hard to do otherwise. So the 20% non-performing loans in 2009, if commodity prices hadn't turned around and that got worse, how destabilizing could that have been? The near impossibility of having fiscal policy actually be counter-cyclical the way you'd want it to be. It's very frightening. And I wonder whether all the tools are being used to lean against that. And one in particular that stands out to me is hedging commodity prices. So in the picture that Eric showed with the accumulated surplus and then spend it down, that works very well if times are good for a long time before times are bad. But that might not happen. And I wonder whether Mongolia might not need the most aggressive hedging program that's been done, given that this is probably a greater exposure to this phenomenon than we may have seen in almost any country, or certainly countries that have this much positive potential for human development.
I guess a similar question. So, in terms of as a means to hedge your price volatility, I was looking at this as one business. There will be two ways, and I'm not sure if this is feasible, but one is enter into long-term contracts with your buyers, say fixed price for 5 years, because the buyers don't like price volatility either. So is that feasible? And then secondly, if your revenue is, large amount of your revenue is denominated in foreign currency, the natural way to hedge that is to change your expenses into foreign currency denominated. So if you have a lot of investments from foreign companies, could you structure a deal where you say you pay your foreign companies in terms of dollars or denominated in renminbi? So that would be two ways if I were managing a corporation to hedge the price risk. And then and I had another point that let me continue. So one risk that was not necessarily mentioned was concentration of quote-unquote customers
So I've noticed that close to 70% of your exports are to China, and 50% of your FDI also come from China. Is there a way to strategically diversify that? I'm sure there are many people that are willing to buy your minerals, resources, and many people that are willing to invest in your country. So you are so dependent on China right now. If something happens to China, then you regardless of the price volatility or exchange rates, you lose that traction. So, I don't know, can you diversify your export counterpart and also your foreign direct investors?
Well, I think if something happens to China,
something will be wrong with the whole world. Okay, let's get the comment from Christopher and maybe Andy to have a discussion. Okay.
Just one last point or question leading on from the previous discussion, Nina's question. Do you track median GDP per capita as opposed to average GDP per capita? Because it seems to me that there's a tremendous risk here of massive concentration of wealth, and you can have GDP growing rapidly, average GDP per capita growing rapidly, but the median GDP per capita actually declining if you exclude direct government subsidies. So I think that you've got a tremendous opportunity here, but it might be worth making sure that you visibly track measures of how what North Americans call a man on the street, the average guy, or as you all have been describing, the family living in the GUR on the outskirts of UB. What does their life look like? What is their real income? What kind of jobs do they do today? What does that look like today? And then if you project that out 5 years, 10 years, what does that family look like? What do you want that family to look like? Where do you want them to live? Do you want them to live in the same plot of land? Do you want them to live in a high-rise apartment in a dense city? What kind of job do you want them to have? Do you want them to be working in construction in terms of building infrastructure, building mines? Do you want them to be working in a more value-added high-tech field? Do you want them to be have no need for working because you're redistributing wealth? And have you done some thinking around socially? What do you want to look like in 10 years? I think that might actually be incredibly insightful and lead you to potentially different answers of how you plan out your economy and how you plan out your incentives if you know where you're trying to get to for the man on the street. If that makes any sense.
Can I just say one number just as a response? In 1997, the World Bank just made a study. 49% of Mongolians lived under $2 a day. 49%. Currently, at the end of 2010, Carl is here. It's 14.9%.
Yeah, that's great.
14.9. So the policies that we have affected in the past have had some impact. And of course, being a democratic country with freedom of speech and
look at the opposition.
I was looking at him. The poverty is a relative thing. I think the long-term policy of the government is to focus on the education, and that's what Prime Minister has stressed during his meeting yesterday, but also in the interviews that he gave before. So the education is going to be the long-term solution to the issue of the social equality going forward. Besides the direct cash handouts, there are lots of subsidies that go into education, into free land ownership, for example, to all the Mongolian citizens, and free, for example, the stock ownership that was allocated this year only, stock ownership in this price countable project. These are temporary measures, but again, the long-term solution will be in the education.
Okay, can we get the last two comments from Andy and Gemma, then I have an open discussion for you.
Thanks.
I thought you wanted to.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Minister.
There's one.
I think it's
think very valuable comment, because I think the most important question is how do you get majority of the people to live a decent life here, isn't it? And 20 years ago, as well as 10 years ago, as well as now, the most pressing issue in this country is still poverty and unemployment, if you look at the opinion polls. Because we're very optimistic, cautiously optimistic, that in the next 5-10 years, hopefully the incomes will go up and unemployment go down. But if you look at the average salary of a teacher or a doctor, not a private doctor, but those who work for public hospitals, it will be about 300, well, I should have asked you to guess first. It's about $300 a month, plus minus. And it's not enough for living yet. It's not enough for decent living, right? And so the fair distribution of this potential wealth that will be coming is a big debate in the parliament, among the politicians, in the public, civil society, and everywhere. So what's been happening is that when so many people are still poor and need increase in the income, what's been happening on the political scene is it was easier for politicians to promise cash and start distributing cash handouts. And of course it's helps many still people and families, but of course ideally if one can come up with more clever policies, it's better to create jobs and increase the incomes of those families. So, but there are good and bad news in Mongolia, I think. So it's a question of which news will prevail, or which news we will make to prevail. So, economic growth, good news. But at the same budget going up, but at the same time, politicians going on the spending spree, which is bad news. For example, this year alone, our budget, which is $4 billion plus minus, $700 million US is spent just distributing cash handouts. A poor country that for many years we accumulated so many needs, a bit of extra money coming in, and of course it's very tempting to politicians just to give about $20 a month to every citizen. Now the good news is, a few months ago, the major political parties and the leaders of the two main parties signed a declaration saying, okay, next elections nobody is going to promise cash. Nobody is going to promise more than the budget can afford.
I was going to tell the minister if he's running, they're having another election, raising taxes is never a good idea. Hasn't been afraid of vice president. What strategic communications is really talking about selling the stores. And it has to have a beginning and an end. And, hopefully the end is a happy one. And in this case, this report shows there is a happy ending. It doesn't start off so great, but it gets much better. And it's all about educational campaigns and targeting educational campaigns to either investors or more specifically, bond buyers or specific people giving specific information. You do not need to educate the general population on the benefits of Mongolian economic development. So let's just show you what the American people as a whole don't know about Mongolia. And I think that's the most important story here. First part is when you ask about should the U.S. increase investment in Mongolia specifically, or it rates about 34% of food, whereas Brazil gets 62%. And India gets 56%. So you're in a real danger zone. You're in the 30% zone. You're in trouble. But that's, again, a good thing, and I'll get to that point. The don't knows to the questions I asked were the most telling. And the first question about whether Americans knew about the vast natural resources, 47% did not know that. Major investment potential, 50% did not know that. The stable government, 54% did not know that. What type of government had, even after I listed them, 59% were okay, but that's good. Trust me, well, I'll get to the story. That's the happy ending. Okay, low awareness of issues lets you set the debate and lets you actually fill in the blanks. as opposed to having to combat a negative image and then establish your case. So this is actually easier in this case. But here we go. So the survey I conducted was for the purpose of this actual presentation. So it's a little light on people, but it demonstrates the points I want to make. General population and a group I call national elites, whose annual income is $100,000 plus, have a college education and closely follow the news. So it's just a general higher level of education. Executive summary. Americans' familiarity and favorability with Mongolia is low. Just 15% of Americans are familiar with Mongolia at all, and only 1 in 3 has a positive or favorable opinion of Mongolia. When you start layering in positive messages, they change dramatically. So when you start talking about investment potential, 52% favorability. 56% among the general population of favorability, and 49% among GP. The most effective messages that I wrote are on natural resources. And the messages themselves are the stories, and how you craft them and how you actually communicate them. And how you communicate them are key. So, key findings. So before the messaging portion of the survey, where I added awareness, 33% were favorable overall. After the messaging section, 82% were favorable. 17% said Mongolia was a good investment opportunity. After the messaging, 69% said it was. And the messaging was taken off just CIA facts. They were just straight facts taken. When you start telling them about them, their attitudes change dramatically. So, in terms of the specifics, in terms of national elites and GP, they were pretty close in terms of the people that you would expect to have a better sense or better education and better knowledge of Mongolia didn't differ dramatically in this pre-post kind of favorability situation. The messages themselves. Before the messages, 17% say Mongolia was a good investment opportunity. 62% of Americans said they were not familiar with Mongolia at all. And only 1 in 3 said they had a favorable opinion of Mongolia. After the messaging section, 82% have a favorable opinion of Mongolia. 69% say Mongolia is a good investment opportunity, and 76% of Americans say Mongolia has a strong economy, and that's a 61-point increase. So the messages themselves, I'm going to display right now, and these are all factually laid out. So the reason for the highlights of the actual text is also text analytics, which I don't think we have time to get into, but if they were highlighted, people stayed on those words longer. There's a survey on the internet, so that means they lingered on these terms longer. So there were 2 key measures here. There were favorability and investment opportunity. And those questions were asked after every single message. And so they're based on the first numbers I showed you and how they changed. So pre, 33, post this message, 71, with the elites, 37 to 88. Investment opportunity, 17 to 69, and investment opportunity with elites, 20 to 86. And that's exactly the message they read. Natural resource message 2 was very similar in both favorability and investment opportunity changes. This had a little more infrastructure layered into it. Political message, talking about the stability or the form of government it had, and the fact that people, peaceful and democratic country come out as the key terms that people pulled out of the actual statement that were the most impactful. Again, massive swings, 60 points, 50-point swings, which is enormous. Political message 2, stability and 2-party system scored very high in terms of what people thought were important about this message. And again, we're looking at 30-point swings here after reading this message.
You're in a 1-party system.
Well, right now it's 2. So, free market economy appeals to Americans. again, 38 to 40 point swings here on an economic message. Modernizing and cultural heritage was also important. Again, it wasn't as persuasive, but it was still pretty good. So the more you told them, the better. These are all straight up facts. The more positive they became. Tourism, same thing. Once you told them that 500,000 people come here annually for tourism, their opinion improved dramatically as well. So people know that, they want to know about it. This was the key. This was what the message worked the best. And when you did by national elites and general population. So what you had here, the number one message was with the general population was stable government, had a 63-point shift. Rapidly developing 63-point shift. For national elites, the message that worked for them was strong economy. But again, you have to look at the difference here. There's 61 to 64. So these are massive changes in people's opinions. And the message, again, themselves, were pretty straightforward. So, in conclusion, the point I want to make is that it's an open slate right now. That there's very low awareness and favorability, and that's not a bad thing. Once you layer in the messages and how you target the messages and to whom you target are key, but that changes public opinion. So, in the United States. So, as an investment tool and criteria, talking to the investment community specifically with targeted messages will make a difference. And that was a question you brought up, Andrew. And also building on what Pat said, when they put out bonds or asked for investment, there was little or no awareness or interest. If you target them specifically outside of standard statistics that they would take, read off from standardized reports, but targeted to them specifically, their opinion would change too.
This is online? How did you do the targeted message online?
This was online. These were just general population and then people that we had that agreed that they were having a higher level of income and education. So that's why I separated out.
I did the question and I got the targeted message.
Yeah. And they were totally randomly rotated to avoid fatigue. And what it is that then from now on, if you're in this stage of this economy where you're not looking to increase tourism as much as you are trying to increase foreign investment by governments and corporations, those messages would be highly targeted. You would use forms of media that spoke to them specifically. And that's not Mongolia's open for business on Silent Plus. That's specific forms of communication through the internet, through direct mail, and more importantly, through mediums that they read.